Hey guys, welcome back to Nicsminibikes. It's been a while since we tore that 301 apart. Kind of worried those parts are getting scattered around in the garage with the kids in and out of there getting mini bikes out and dirt bikes and just jacking around in the garage. So we're gonna make a video here, throw that motor back together to make sure we don't lose any of those parts, because you know, kids are kids. So here we go. Let's throw that motor back together and see what we get. So here's my rod that we're going to be putting in there. That sun isn't going to help us any, but it's a 6261 ARC rod. To do these rods, you got to have a 12-point socket. We'll loosen these bolts a little bit at a time. So these bolts have washers. And if you look, there's a bevel on one side and it's flat on the other. If your washers come off, the bevel goes towards the bolt head. It comes with bearings. We'll take some parts cleaner. We'll clean this part of the rod. Clean shop towel. We'll wipe her down. We'll take one half of a bearing and we'll clean it as well. These bearings have a little, I guess you call it a tooth, sticking out there. There's a spot for it on that rod. We'll just sit right in the middle there. There's that hole in the middle of the bearing. Just make sure it lines up with that oil groove in the rod. Actually, looking closer, these are site specific, so we got to get that back out of there. That one goes in the cap. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So here's that cap, the rod. You got your oil hole right there. Here's where that little tooth goes, right there. There's your oil hole. One cap has the hole in the middle. One cap has the hole off center. So that one with the off center is going to go on your rod because the oil hole is off center on the rod. So we'll start over. Clean these. Get it all wiped out. Nice and clean. Same for the bearing. Clean that bearing up. So you got an oil hole there and there. This cap can only go in there one way. So you got your groove for your little tooth right there. You got your tooth there. So this rod bearing is going to go in like this. So we'll just center it up, slide her in place. Now that oil hole is lined up with an oil hole. I'll show you. Right there, and oil hole for the rod is there as well. Right, now that we got that figured out, get this rod in there straight, just tight enough to hold it. I don't want it messing up. So now we'll take our cap and we'll give it a shot of parts cleaner. Wipe it down. We already cleaned this bearing, but we'll do it again. Give it a good wipe down, nice and clean. That's your little ear, tooth, whatever you want to call it. in your little groove for it right there. See it? Oil hole in the middle. Oil hole in the middle of the bearing. Put it in there. And press her down. Take our crank. Give it a blast of cleaner here. Get it wiped down. And we're just going to set it on the rod here. We'll take a piece of plastic gauge here. Set it across that crank. Now we're ready for that cap. Take our ARP fasteners, put some oil on the threads. Like so. Slide one in, your other one, dunk it in some oil. Alright, so my instructions from ARC say go 16 foot-pounds. We're just going to go nice and even. There's 16 foot-pounds. Now it says add 4 foot-pounds until you reach 26. So 16 and 4 is 20. (20 and 4 is 24. Now 24 and 4 is 28, and we only want to go to 26. We're just going to add 2. Now it tells you to back them off to 16 foot-pounds. I don't know how to torque in reverse. Say that's more than 16, quite a bit actually, but that's all right. Now we'll go back up to 16. And we'll go 20. (24). And 26. Now that we got those torqued down to 26 again, we'll take them off. We'll see what that plastic gauge says. Let's see if I can show you this time. I didn't show you on the 212 for whatever reason. So there's our plastic gauge. We just match one of these up with it. Yeah, that's really hard to show you. I'm going to say it's at 2 thou clearance. So the instructions say no less than 2, no greater than 4. So we're good there. Get that plastic gauge cleaned off and be ready to put this back together. So back here at the workbench, I'm gonna get this block cleaned out. All right, we got that guy cleaned out. Pretty much the best I can with what I got. When you clean your block out, make sure you pull your drain plugs so you can clean out the holes that go through them to them, because they catch a lot of crap down in there. So now that we got that clean, we'll set it aside and we'll start putting that rod on our piston. All right guys, so we want a nice clean surface to do this on. So my workbench is anything but, so we'll do it on these paper towels. We need to get one of these clips out of here. Here's your piston. Your clip is right here. I just got a pointy file. I'm gonna hook that ring, pry it out. It starts coming, and then I'm just gonna put the file behind it and grab it and work it around until it comes out. Now push that pin out this way. Just slide her out somehow. There we go. And there is our stock 301 rod. And there is our replacement. I'm going to pull that pin all the way out. I'm going to hit the sides of this piston and around these rings with some cleaner. I'm going to hit the wrist pin hole, some cleaner. I'll wipe them out. Now I'll clean the wrist pin. Now I'll clean my wrist pin hole on the new billet rod. So after you clean everything, you take your clean parts, some full synthetic oil. Just put a little bit of oil on that wrist pin. Set it back on your supposed clean surface. Get your piston. Find your arrow. Mine's right there. Long side of the rod goes to the arrow. Take your oiled wrist pin. Get it started in that piston. Long side of the rod towards the arrow. Slide that wrist pin back in till it bottoms out on the one clip you left in there. Then you could take your clip, start one end of it down in there, and then just work it around until it pops back into place. There you go. And then just take something and make sure it's in all the way. Looks good to me. And there's your billet rod installed on your stock piston. Alright, we got the block back, ready for the crank. Just put it in there and that bearing back in its hole. Hopefully it goes back in as easy as it came out. There we go. Now I'll put some oil in the cylinder bore. Take our piston ring compressor and we'll put some oil inside it. We'll dump some oil on our piston also. We'll get it in that compressor. I hate these things, but this is what I got. We'll get it in there. We're going to get it just past those bottom rings. Get as tight as we can. As tight as I can get it. Arrow pointing down. Slide that. See, look at that. I missed. Alright, I got it on there a little farther this time. I got all the rings under it at least. Arrow pointing down, long side of the rod down. Crank out of the way. Start that piston skirts into the bore. Take your hammer and just weld on it. No, I'm not really. Tap around that compressor. Make sure it's seated all the way against that block. Give a couple taps on that piston with the handle of your hammer. If you got a dead blow, probably be better. I don't. I do somewhere. Kids lost it. Then I do some more tapping. One more tap in here. A little tap in here. Little tap in here. Again here. Got resistance, so we're going to stop because we got a ring that popped out. No surprise to me there. Stop before we break anything. Try again. Got her that time. Now we'll come back to inside here, pick up that rod. There we go. To right there where we can get her put back together. Got her cap. Dip her down, set it in place there. Got our cap bolts dipped in some oil, get them started. The other one started by hand, and we'll follow that torque procedure again. So got that connecting rod in there. We've got it all torqued down, put it at top dead center, then we're going to see how far down in that hole we are. So we're not looking for perfect numbers, we're just trying to get an idea. Got a little bit of piston rock, so we'll push it down, get that top up all the way. And we're down in the hole quite a bit. $51 thousandths. So if I would have checked that before I bought the rod, which I didn't, I just bought a stock rod, I could have bought a longer rod to bring that piston up a little higher. But this is what I got. This is what I'm gonna go with. So we're good there. So we'll use a 10 thou gasket. Now we're gonna clean off this side cover gasket area. All right, so we're gonna get these tappets in there. Gonna put some oil on them. Lay that block over. Slide them in. Then I'll drop some oil down in that cam hole. There's my cam, just a stock 301 cam. We'll line up our timing marks. So there's our dot and our dot. So we got our timing good. Now we'll get that side cover put on. We'll put our dowel pins in. Just gonna put a light little coat of oil on this gasket. And we'll set her in place. Put that side cover on. All right, we're gonna go 17 foot-pounds on these side cover bolts. All right, so now we'll get this head on, and I did assemble it, and I Play-Doh'd my valve clearances. I got 100 on one and 80 on the other with this 10th out head gasket. I didn't record it because it was windy, wouldn't have been any good. We'll take our 2 dowels. They go in the top 2 holes. Slide them in there. And we'll take our 10th out head gasket, set it in place. And we'll just take that head, set it on there. Start our head bolts in. We'll go up to 25. Now we'll start to put our valve train together, our push rods. Drop them in there, make sure they go into your tappets. Take your rocker, grab your push rod down there with the end, put it in. And these ones slide through this way. Just like that. Now we're ready for the other one. Here's our intake side. Same thing. We'll grab that rod. Slide it into place. Our pin through this direction here. So if you were paying attention, you would have noticed I forgot 2 important pieces. Lash caps. Here's my intake. There's my exhaust. Now we'll put these back on. And you got your little retainer. It's there. That stops those pins from coming out. Now we're ready to set that valve lash. So I know I'm at top dead center, I can see the piston through the hole, and we set that top dead center when we checked how far down the hole we are. I'm gonna set it at 3 thou. I set it all at 3 thou for valve clearance. Let's put a cam in and it wants something different. 3 thou is where I put it. Just get it so it has drag. Take the nut down. We'll hold that one. Tighten that one. 3 thou. Again, until we get drag. Hold the little nub on the adjuster. Tighten the set nut. That's actually probably the fastest I've ever done setting valves. That will do. Now we'll put this valve cover on. Alright, so we don't want any of this running dry, and this is probably going to make a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. I'm going to take some of my oil here, and we're just going to dump it on those valve springs. A little on those pins. Just make a mess. That's what we'd like to do. Got that oil on there, we'll get it on that gasket. Set it in place. So inside your valve cover you have drain holes down at the bottom. See that dot there and that dot there? Those are going to point down. The valve cover goes on this way. I'm not going to worry about torquing these, so I'll just get them on real quick and bring you back. Alright guys, valve cover's on. Now we'll come over this side here. We'll get that flywheel put on. So for a flywheel, what I'm using is a 6627, and I've already lapped this flywheel to this motor, so we're just going to put it on. Just slide it on there like that, and then we'll get our starter cup slid into place. And we got our flywheel nut. Oh, we got that nut on there, and when we do 212s, 224s, I got a tool that'll hold this crank so it doesn't move and I can torque it. But I don't have that for this, and I didn't think of this before. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this side cover back off, and I'm gonna put a wrench in there to hold against the crank while I tighten that down. So let me get this side cover back off. Alright, that side cover's off, and this is what I'm gonna do. See that wrench right there? It's up against the weight of that crank, and it's on a pretty thick part of the block, so that should be fine. So we're gonna put that there. And we'll torque this nut down. Alright guys, ARC's website says 85 foot-pounds, so let's do it. Right as we hit 85, the wrench decided to get silly. Now we got a specialty wrench. That's fine. Now I'll just throw that side cover back on real quick. Alright, flywheel's on, torque down, 85 foot-pounds. Side cover's back on, torque down to 17 foot-pounds. I'm ready to put that coil on there. Alright, so this is the coil off here that we used to get that 390 running. We're just going to put it back on this engine where it goes. Just run our kill switch wire up through there. Start our bolts. ARC recommends 30 thou coil gap. So I stuck that in there and I brought the magnet around, suck that coil down, and it's going to hold it down while I tighten these two up. And we'll just spin this and it'll pop that out. There's your coil gap. Spin it just to make sure. Not hitting nothing. We're happy. Alright guys, I want to get a better carb for this, but I never got around to it. But what I do got is a GX390 carburetor, and it runs really good with that. So I got a GX390 isolator with a pulse fitting. The gasket is still on the back, so it'll go on first. Like that. Next thing we got is this gasket here. We got that hole. It's gonna go up and to the right, like this. Then the GX390 carburetor. This is a 27mm carburetor. It'll go on there next. Once I get a carburetor for this, this is the carburetor that will go on that 390 that we did the Will It Run video on. We got that. We got our metal gasket. Got that hole there. You don't want it to line up with this little ear there. So it'll go this way, just like that. And that is your gasket against this. It'll slide on there like that. One lock washer for each side. And the nut. This carburetor's main jet, I don't remember. I think it's either a 42 or a 43. So we'll get those snug. Back and forth, keeping it even. Now I'll put my top plate back on. One bolt up here, one bolt in the back. We'll put this one back on. Top we left loose because the fan shroud uses one of the same bolts. And here's our fan shroud. We'll just slide into place. Like that. We'll get our bolts put in, and I'll bring you back. We got that fan shroud on. We're ready to put that pull starter back on. All right, guys, I think that's gonna do it for putting the 301 back together. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the video of starting this puppy back up. Thanks for watching.